Hello and welcome back, and we're going to go to another PGA Tour, well, World Cup of Design playthrough, and this one is Killcorran Golf Club by richnufc. I've played a lot of Rich's courses before. Let's stick with 4. Now, what's he said? He said default green speeds, cool, fine by me. Lots of width and fairway surrounds on most greens to run or bounce approaches on, we like that. Easy/medium standard CC. Had Glen Eagles in mind originally, but more the vibe rather than a strict influence. Okay. So let's go medium. Medium seems like a fair thing. And I haven't gone west for a while. And everything else default. Right, let's give this a go. We are back, yeah. So as mentioned, I've played a number of Rich's courses before, and he's kind of trying to get over that hump of making it out of groups, I think, for the past couple of World Cups. Definitely one. Okay, we've got the mottled kind of fairway texture. Yeah, I can get the Glen Eagles influence, definitely, in terms of that kind of Parkland Scottish course. Nice to see a Scottish course that isn't a links. Now, I will say there are some surfaces from up here that are worrying me. This hole down here, I already have some strong thoughts on. I think width needs to be managed carefully, and it feels like we've occasionally just gone crazy width. But we'll judge it when we get there. It's also kind of like, sometimes if you have to get a fairway that is both here and here, you probably just need to change the whole idea. I learned that one way, I think, Gangwase back on that CC contest. I definitely had holes like that. This one also feels extremely wide. But we will see. There's lots of this, though, that I like. I think the planting's quite cool. I'm not sure about the dip with trees in it. That feels... The trees are tiny compared to the ones on the hillside, but quite a cool feature. This is going to be interesting. And then we got... Okay, so we're doing bits of heather. Oh, right, we've got 2 sort of heathery courses back to back. I do like the little mounds of heather and the way they can work together. So hopefully that buys in nicely. I'm enjoying that. I think the lighting's really nice. Okay, and then we've got like... One thing I think you have got right is the amount of, like, bizarrely, the amount of empty space I think works really well for the sort of look you're going for. Like Scottish moorlands, you definitely would get that sort of thing. Is this our club hat? That looks really nice and fits well. Okay. And so our guy is there, and that's a nice little vista all the way out there. Cool. Let's get this going. I'm not sold on the light rough paths, and like kind of as I would have said with other playthroughs, if you're going to go really dense planting, it's kind of got to taper off and not just stop and then have nothing, particularly if you feel like, well, the dense planting's got to be natural, right? Nobody's like sat there and hand planted loads of this grass and stuff, which means that we've gotten rid of it for these parts. Therefore, why is this bit empty? It just doesn't make much sense. And I think from a T view, if this were the only view you're seeing, then it kind of works, but it doesn't really stand up under much scrutiny, I guess, for lack of a better term. And it's not that you don't mind planting, because you've done this nice little bit of work down here. I think it's just tying stuff together and being a bit more random. Additionally, I would avoid the kind of, again, speaking from past experience, I used to do this, just encircling your bushes with grasses and things. I think the more you can have it spreading out a little bit more naturally, the better that will look. This dip, however, looks great. And yeah, I like this area. Again, I wish this was like, this stuff was just a bit more continued. It's great where it is, but it just stands out a little bit because it's so isolated. And I feel like it's kind of, you're not quite sure whether you're going pure parkland and there's nothing under the trees, which would be cool, or really dense vegetation and it's just blending, we're saying the same word again as on the previous playthrough, blending those two together a little bit. Okay, nearly through the preamble. I do like the plants you've chosen, like the little highlights are great. Yeah, I think it's a good look. I'm not. I will come out and say it on T1. I'm not a fan of the bunkers. They all look the same, or like the same basic shape, and I've never seen these on any course in the UK. This kind of like single drop down bunker, and I know this is kind of a learned habit that we all tried to do because most of us grew up watching Matt do bunkers, but it doesn't really fit this course, I wouldn't say. Right, hit a tee shot then. So, as for the hole itself, interested to see what the green is like. Oh, and we're dropping loads of frames. Great. Is it coming back? It seems to be coming back. Happy days. Yeah, this bunker feels a little awkward in terms of how it's tied in and around the green, and if I'm honest, I feel like the thing you probably need to do is study some real courses a bit more and see how they do the surfacing and the width and the bunkers, because I think you've got the ideas. I just don't think they're necessarily, you haven't got that what's the word, framework, I guess, or like the means to compare it to, because you don't see greens looking like this, you don't see the bunkers looking like this, you don't see the fairway working out like this, and you don't see the fairway going way out wide and then way back this way. There's not much to say other than I think you just need to study a bit more. And like, that's kind of, I guess, could have called that from what you wrote on the judging form, where it started out with that vibe or feeling, but it didn't look that closely. There we go. And I think you would do really well before you go into whatever your next course is. When you're looking at the course that you're drawing from, yes, by all means look at the planting and the atmosphere and all of that, but also look at where they put fairways. What are the bunkers like? Where are the bunkers? How big are the bunkers? How big are the greens? What typical shapes do they use? Where do they set the greens? All of those sorts of things you can pick up, and that'll make a huge difference. Now, love the look of this tee shot. I think this is framed really nicely. This grassy area looks great. And like here it's tied together. Like this stuff going into here makes sense. Now, yeah, and follows all the way through here. The heather looks good. Hi, Jay. And it's an interesting hole design. I would lose the centerline bunker. I would slim the fairway way down. I would definitely have lost one of these two bunkers because of the way they layer off the tee, and it would 100% be the centerline bunker, and then probably have bunkered the inside a little bit, would have looked neater. But again, that comes down to like, look at, if we zoom out to the overhead, you will never ever see any fairway that looks like this, where it's this huge bulge out this side and then it comes back. Yeah, I think that's probably my main message of the stream already. That said, we can hit down this way and hopefully get a little bit of a run through. And I do like the space you've given down here. Looks good. The green itself, that pin's dicey. Which, yeah, I guess it's a short par. Short par 5, so that can happen. Here's a shot. Happy with that. We'll take that. Yeah, technically an illegal pin. I'm not sure I really care for it. But, oh, it's a par 4. That raises other questions. I think if we're going back to that previous hole, you need to either... I mean, it would feel like a publish error. That felt like it should be a par 5. 529 with a big dog leg feels like it's probably a short par 5. Especially at 507 from the front tees, but I could be wrong. No, maybe not. I mean, it's got 36-36, so it's probably meant as a long par 4, in which case you've got to soften the green and make it more friendly, because if you have bailed out off the tee, you've got, or like into a headwind, it's really challenging. Love the look of this hole from here. I, again, would like to see the planting continue a little bit more around here and just over here, like really empty over here. It's just that if you're going for a contest, you can't half-ass the planting. And I'm not saying you've half-assed it, but you certainly haven't carried it on everywhere that you could have done. And like this sort of stuff, we're looking from this green and you're seeing all of the empty space. Like the guys at the top end won't do this. Yeah, I think what you've done in this view, great. You've got to check for more. Alrighty. I actually like the par 3 itself. I think the green shape works. Yeah, green shape works nicely. I still think it's not the most natural green shape. I'd want to be changing and checking that, like, why is it dipping in here? There's all of these lobes that you just don't see on real courses. I really think you've got to look at that. There we go. But like, looking back, this looks lovely. Like, there's loads of good stuff. It's just not necessarily consistent. Yeah, same thing with fairway widths. Like, nobody ever needs this fairway for a start. But nobody's ever using it. And part of this is trying to get that angle stuff, but when you can carry it to here with no real issues, at least on that line, you're never going to need all of the space out here. Like, this fairway is, if we're looking at width from here to here, far, far wider than it needs to be. Also, can we, I guess we blocked this off pretty nicely. Don't know. We probably blocked it off with the next set of trees, but we do have a 9-9 in. Yeah, I don't think you really gain anything from playing down this way, but it is entertaining. And I think that's partly because you're winding a tight dogleg around another hole. That's always going to be something that can happen. I maintain that you never need any of this, but you can slim this fairway down by 50 yards, and I think you've got a much better hole. I do appreciate that we've got grass all the way around. Again, I think you're just kind of getting used to the where do you want fairway and where do you not, because you can tighten this up and it would work better. The intentions are all in the right places with the fairway surrounds, just maybe doesn't need as much for this one. Oops, smash that part. Get me off this hole. Dreadful. Back to 1 under. Again, I think this is the same message. Strategically, it's doing the right things. We've got a layup area, but that puts you into this kind of awkward position, or we can hit down here. But it's really, really wide, and it just looks awkward because of it. You just kind of want to take these ideas and just condense them. And again, that's something I definitely went through pretty early on with like my 3rd or 4th course, I think. 3rd? 4th, maybe. No, definitely with my 2nd, so Gang Rosé. In fact, when I do the comments for this on YouTube, I will paste a video of that and Reeb's playthrough for that, and you can see kind of the things that I was doing that are very, very similar to this. Because there's just that excess of width where it doesn't necessarily make sense. Hey, Huda. Lovely to see you, buddy. Alright, that can hopefully not spin off. That's fine. Because, yeah, like, I'm all for giving fairway options, but we don't need runoff down to here. And it just makes it all look a little awkward and, like, going to sound harsh, but it's a little amateurish because you don't need all of this, and it looks like, I don't know. I feel like part of it is you've spread your routing too thin, maybe, and covered too much land, or the not wanting to plant everything. Either way, I think something had to give. We've got another pin that's borderline. Especially, I believe you said easiest, like definite CC. Definitely wouldn't be putting this on CC for some of the pins we've faced so far, and that second hole. Oh, the one I hit a 9-9 into was a par 5. Huh. Okay, tiny green now. Like, very small green. Which is fine. I'm happy that we're varying it. I'm not sure it totally fits the shot I'm hitting into it. Again, if this is CC, it's way too difficult. Although we've got the punch bowl here, that back pin's tough. There's not much space there. This one, we don't have much before we're hitting into the light yellow. Framing's really nice again. I can't knock the look, and I love that you've given us that look through to the clubhouse. I think the bits that you've planted look really, really good. I reckon 99% of the problems on this course have come from the routing and the amount of space you gave it right at the beginning. Because everything is trying to work out the kinks of those problems from there, really. It's a cool look, though. I'm really enjoying it. Okay, hole 7. So now we've got this little ravine sort of area. Again, same thing as we said with axles on the previous one. If you've got a cool area that's like in the bit of the plot, let's not just have a dead flat fairway and then here's your ravine. It would make much more sense if this was working towards it and cambered that way, kind of like you can see this bit is. And like, let's just not have it be two-tiered. Try and blend those in a little bit more. I guess you can probably drive this. Yeah, I think it's kind of a shame you can do that. It takes any real thought out of the hole. Yes, I've taken on a risk and I've gone over that all the way. I just don't really feel like this is set up to be a drivable par 4, even though it is. I don't know. It just feels. I really struggle with drivable par 4s in this game generally. I think they're very. You have to work really hard to make it either or make it not all or nothing. And that one's like either you're driving it all the way and you're getting on the green, or you're bailing out. And I don't know. Probably would have. I guess. What could you have done differently? Probably made the green a bit more interesting. Would have helped. Okay. Ah, yes, this is that hole I saw from the overhead. The fairway is absurdly wide. I'm afraid there's no other word for it. And why would you ever play out here? It's a more challenging tee shot. It brings a lengthier approach over more trouble. Why would you not play this way every single time? I don't really get it. And also, you can't reach if you go the other side. This is the only... I think if ever you're seeing this sort of stuff and you look at the previous hole. The previous hole, okay, it had its flaws, I think. But like, the previous hole makes sense as a golf hole. Look at this fairway width. Then look at this one. Like, these two should never be on the same course together. This one has to, like... Yeah, maybe too much space to fill. I don't know. This needed blowing up. I'm sorry, there's no... Yeah. I can't really say anything else, I'm afraid. Like, maybe if there's multiple avenues and like each one offers various merits, and like one day you play one way, one day you play another, but there wasn't. That doesn't happen either. This one has some really cool land. I like the downhill, like run into the green site. Again, the central bunker is kind of purely to justify the massive amount of fairway out here. I'm coming back to the fact that I feel like you bit off more that you can chew with the routing, and like I'd be intrigued to know how much of the land you've used. I might zoom out again at the end. So why is this bunker here? Because if you hit down to this part of the fairway, you're kind of screwed for that approach shot anyway. It makes more sense to bunker up here somewhere, surely, and try and tempt people to hit down here, and if they can't reach it, they're blocked out. And not only that, if you do hit down here and you're in that bunker, and you then go to the green, there's a bunker on that line as well. And then it runs away from you, so you're really struggling if you go down the left. Okay? A lot of stuff just isn't really working in tandem on this hole. Especially as you can bomb the driver way down there anyway. Again, cut the fairway up here. Lose that bunker. Much better hole. Cut the fairway in here so you can potentially run out of space. Really good hole. I like the green site. I like the green complex. I like the amount of fairway you've got around it. It's the tee shot that is the problem with this one. Such a shame. There's so much stuff you've done well. And there's just a few things that are causing really big issues, unfortunately. Do like that view back to the first as well. That works nicely. Pin is also a bit of an issue. If you look, we've got the big slopes coming in here. It's all falling this way, this way. We've got some beads going there, and it's like, I think that could be flattened out a little bit. Again, if you're going CC, we've also put it where it's running away past the hole, which is going to challenge them big time. Didn't quite make it there. Yeah, I don't know. I think you took some chances, and I'd always rather see that for sure than just playing safe. It's just understanding bits of them, like why we got fairway here. Nobody's using this. What? Oh no, this isn't the same hole, is it? Why have we got fairway here, Rich? Because, okay, if you have a bunker here and you have the like hug this side as much as you can, and like then it's making it quite an interesting hole. And you've got this bunker here, which I think is nicely placed. Like, I can try and cut the corner, but if I'm not sharp enough, like, I've got the risk of either ending up here or ending up in here. And then you've got a nice green site. I like that perched over the bunkers. Don't love the bunker shapes as mentioned on the first, but like the green, I would probably be putting your green banked like lengthways into this copse of trees, because I think that looks awesome. That little copse of trees is really good. You've got a great green site. However, the moment you chuck this in here, it's all pointless, because everyone is just going to bomb driver over here, because why wouldn't you? It's also 36 feet downhill, of course. So it's taken every bit of strategy out of the tee shot, because why would I not do this? And you've given me so much room. And it doesn't make sense because it's not in any other hole. And yeah, maybe I end up with a pitch shot, and maybe that's not my favourite, but everyone is taking that all the time. And the view back down looks really good, and the planting you've done is really good. It's just like there's some decisions that were made, I think, really early on that have hurt this one big time. It would be really nice if I could putt. No. -4 and I can't putt for a damn. Oh well. Love the look at this one off the tee. I think the lower little bits of planting here is the sort of stuff I'd love you to have done a bit more. And again, if you put a bit more back out here, the vibe of this course, as you kind of mentioned in the form, is really cool. It's the specifics that I think you could really use a bit more work with. Again, think the green could be just softened just a little. If you're asking us to hit 3-iron just over this bunker, let's maybe not have it running on hard to the green. Maybe not back, yeah. Somewhere up here will do. Yeah, onto the green is fine. I love that you've left this open so we can see the previous hole. That works nicely. there's a putt. Can't hold anything from 5 feet, but give me that. It's fine. Stealing one there. Okay, another par 5. Yeah, fairway. At this point, it must be. I do like the bridge in the background. That's cool. That shows off nicely. It's got to be meter related and plot related at this point, looking at the tree line you've got and the lack of stuff underneath it. Yeah, again, because of how wide you've made it, why would anyone ever look to like, oh gosh, this is very wide. So if you can hit to here and you can get a load of reward, why would you ever hit anywhere out here? The hole is just way too wide. Oh, and the next one scares me as well because I've just seen this bit of fairway. Because like that's the play every single time. This feels a little awkward. It feels like I'm from the world's widest fairway to the world's narrowest green, which I don't mind. At least this is different, and like it does mean that if I'd played to the top side, I get a little bit of a better angle. I don't think it would ever change the way I've played this hole, but I can see why it's made the way it is. Come back a little? No. Okay, it's now on high point, and you get a bit more of a view across the plot, which is cool. Yeah, you can see the huge extent of this. Just needs tightening. Okay. This one worries me. What? This bit of fairway simply should not exist. Right, have your copse of trees, work the hole around it, that's enough of a good idea. Have the heathery mound for sure. Yeah. This feels forced in the extreme. And because of you trying to make this an option, the green therefore will not really function from this side. Which is the way I'm going to play it, because this is the way I think it should be played. It's a better hole from up here. And that looks lovely. Like, this is the view you really want people to have. This looks great. And because of trying to encourage this angle, you've really made the green severe from this side, and it doesn't work as well, unfortunately. Still. Yeah. I think if I'm summing this course up at like the 3/4 way stage, it has so much potential. There's so much good about it. You just got to question some of the decisions you make and really think them through and go, does this make sense? Does this fit? And like that bit of research at the start and way you laid out the plot. Because this is cool. I would have liked a bit more planting in the low area. I think that would be perfect for loads of heather, even if you're taking the bits off this hillside and putting them down here. That would look great. But the green benched in the other little side of the quarry looks really cool. Works nicely. That's a fortuitous kick. Ah, not quite. Yeah. This hole doesn't really do very much for me, I'm afraid. It's occupying a big space, and it's just kind of you hit driver as close as you can do. Yeah, there's some danger here, but I think where you've put the green, the fact that it's side on, plus a lot of it is just the extreme width means that I can kind of go most places and I'm going to be okay. Width and angles does work and is a good thing, but the angles have to matter. And it has to be, the danger of width and angles is if you don't have that preferred side of the fairway and enough place for people to play themselves into problems, then it just becomes you can hit it anywhere, which was my main critique on a number of CC courses earlier this year. Okay, 16. Yeah, don't love the S-bendy thing. I do like the mounding, the heather and stuff. The sculpting in front of this bunker could be a little neater, and the sculpting of the bunker as well. How much of this fairway is usable, really? Again, where do I want to end up? Well, I'm just going to hit driver down here because it's going to get me closest to the green. It's not that. Okay, I do at least end up blind. That's something. And yeah, I could have played to the right and got a better angle. Okay. This one works a bit better. I still think I'd take a sand wedge over. If I play to this side, I've got a much. What have I got? 100 and. What have I got? 120. If I play from back here, I've got 180. There's no one taking that because the angles are so extreme, and you've not wanted to work and because you've created that. However many, I don't know. I reckon from here to here, we're looking at least 100 yards of width. And in order to do that, you've had to make this, cut this off so far back. That's why people are always going to take this option. Because you can't do that with a 9-iron or a 7-iron, or even, well, sorry, not a 9-iron, 5-iron, which I'd have been hitting from 180. Like, the sand wedge is always going to win, which means that even though the angles work, you have to make them super severe, which is why the previous, that par 4 green with the kind of secret hidden fairway idea, remember how that was so severe? It's because you're trying to make those ridiculous angles work. Or the really extreme, sorry, well, not ridiculous, extreme angles work. Whereas if you don't do that, and you do the extreme width, then you end up with a hole where it doesn't matter where you play. I like the green side a lot. Again, I would you see how steep this is, and then it's just going to dead flat. Let's try and make it so that those slopes come into the green a little bit, provide some backstops or some interest or mounding around it. Oh, there. Well, it's been a while. There's bound to be one coming in. Okay. Well, that makes this approach more interesting. Up 8 feet. There's no way this gets there. No. There's always going to be a risk. I tried, though. I like the green site. I like hitting over the brow of the hill. It's nice to have that change of pace blind tee shot, which seems to be what it's been used for in this contest. A little bit of a, let's just have something different. But that almost kind of semi-blind hit over the brow of the hill. The one thing I'd say about this hole, just thinking about it, is the previous hole you had 2 flanking bunkers either side of the fairway and you were hitting between them. You've just done the same thing on this one, so maybe try to vary that a little bit. Worst par ever. Hey Grenade, we're just finishing up with the last one and then I need to go and pick up my son. Yeah, I guess 18 kind of encapsulates a lot of the course. We've got a load of width that means that whilst there may be a preferred angle, it really kind of doesn't matter. So I'll just choose path of least resistance, hit driver somewhere down here. I do like the clubhouse. I like that we've got so much openness. Down 13, yeah, that'll probably do it. And the helping slope should bring that around. Nice. Stop. Now, one thing I had said I was going to check before we kind of, at the risk of potentially holding this part, I'm intrigued to see how much of the plot you used, because I think that's probably the biggest part of this. So if we're going to keep zooming out, yeah, you've used loads of it. I think that's what, yeah. Okay, so if you see the plot we've got, you've used the vast majority of it, and that's why you've had to spread the planting out so thin. If you think of, like, I don't know, 1,000 by 1,000 areas, say you went for the smaller area, that's there to there to there to there. So that's like probably half of what you've done. And because of that, and going for that openness, you're always going to end up with stuff that's empty. And now, whether that's quite why we've ended up with these two really awkwardly wide holes and like the odd bits of huge fairways, I'm not sure if it's totally that or if it was part of the vision at the beginning. But I also wonder whether you necessarily had that plot sculpted and went and found holes beforehand. Because I suspect when you're using this much of the plot, there's no way you've gone round and found all of these holes and gone, well, maybe you have. I don't know. But it feels less likely. Okay. I appreciate that one might have come across as a little bit more negative than others, but there's so much good about it, and yet it's let down by some big issues in the planning stages, I would say, and the more we can kind of try to explain those, the better, which is why I'll kind of look at those. And there are loads of real good positives. I loved the environment. I wish it had been a bit more consistently planted, but I do think a lot of that comes down to that rooting stage at the beginning. But your framing off the tee is really, really good. Yeah, you're definitely using more fairway around greens, which does allow for more forgiveness and recovery shots and all of those things. I thought it was a unique environment. I thought the lighting's really good. And there's a lot I really liked, and there's some cool little areas of that plot that you found. So the little quarry bits and sections I thought were really nice. The heathery mounds look great. Problems. As you tried to do the super width, it got away from you in quite a big way, as you could see with some of the holes, say 8 and the other par 5, 12 on the back, I think. So that really caused an issue. Additionally, with you spreading yourself too thin, the planting's an issue. And just simply, I think the single two biggest bits of advice I've got for you, having seen a number of your courses, would be, one, you've got to dig into the actual real courses you're looking at and just look at what they do, not to steal ideas, but to see how they do it and understand how they do it, because the bunkering, the fairway shaping, the green shaping, none of that's come from a real life course, really. And whilst it's great to bring your own ideas to it, there's a point where, like, the people who do this for a living know better than us, and they do these things for a reason. So I would be looking at that and going, okay, and studying how do they do this, why do they do this. That will make this all work so much better, because none of them have ever built a hole like 8, for example. Secondly, the other thing I would really look at is take a load of time on your routing stage. I've said this before with you, where you've put out loads of courses in a month, and it feels like, I don't think I felt that with this one, but it feels like we're rushing to the publish. Now, I don't think that was the case with this one in terms of how you built it. I think you've taken your time because the planting's really good and it's detailed. Where I think you did rush it was in the routing stage and in the questioning bit at the beginning. By comparison, any course I do, I will typically, for a contest, spend about a week looking over the routing and changing and trying to visualise how it's all going to fit together, how the planting is going to work. Have I done this idea before? Have I done this one? And I'll chuck measure tools down. And I know that loads of guys are the same. Pithy will do the same. Petty does the same. Jizer does the same. Name someone who is one of those really top designers. They will see it all out. They won't go hole by hole, and they will develop the plot loads before they start, and then they get into it. RJ Wills, exactly the same. And he's not afraid to blow up 6 or 7 holes at a time for something he sees as better. So I think really develop the plot, make the land as good as you can do, find those ideas, have that big picture vision of how is this all going to work together. Because I reckon, I'd be interested to know whether there came a point where you're just like, oh, we've got a problem, where you realise you had too much space to fill. Because I feel like that's partly what's happened. Now, that said, you aimed for CC and you definitely hit it as -9, and I didn't play particularly well. I do think hole 2 felt like a par 5 rather than a par 4. But there's lots I liked about it. I thought your green sites that you found were really cool. I definitely would have changed the bunkering. I think that's kind of, it just doesn't really do very much for me. They're all basically the same shape. They're not visually adding very much, and they don't and they're not really realistic in terms of their look or presentation. So I think one of those things we would have changed. And there's some interesting golf out there. There's some really good looks into green sites. The one that I think I found the most was it 13, which was that one with those two kind of split fairways. Yeah, it would have been. It's right after that par 5. Like, that look into the green that I had from there was so good. Just sometimes buy into simple done well, and that's all you need to do. But yeah, I did really enjoy my round. I know it might come across like I'm nitpicking, but I know that that's what you and indeed anyone else watching these videos kind of tunes in for. So hopefully that helps, gives you a few ideas of things to work on. Best of luck in the contest. I can't remember what group you or anyone else is in. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. Just for those of you following along with the playthroughs, I'm now off on holiday for a week or so there won't be any more, but I think I've got enough backed up on Twitch that they're going to go up to YouTube one a day, so it probably saves me through until when I come back. But yeah, if you're expecting some playthroughs on Twitch, it's not going to be for a little while. Lovely to catch you all. Hopefully that was useful, and see you again soon.